Embarrassing. Great. I just got back from Nigeria. How many of us know Burna Boy? How many of us have thought of the relevance of artists to the youth, peace and security agenda? So when we think about innovativeness, we're actually saying, how do we take that ability for Burna Boy and somebody in South Africa to collaborate and they create music that's listened, not just on the African continent, but in New York, right? How do we take that innovativeness and actually make it work for issues that matter on the continent?
And just maybe before I get into your question, just to highlight that I was one of the very few young people that participated at the 10th TANA Forum in Bahada. And one of the recommendations we had was more inclusion of young people in TANA's engagements. And I'm really happy to see this come to realization, where TANA has actually put together different young people from different parts of the region. So thank you very much, IPSS and GIZ. Now, Dr. Rooks, you mentioned that I've been privileged. It is a privilege when I speak on a panel. I don't see young people in Africa disempowered, because I've had the opportunity to sit on the front line where youth have been part and parcel rather of shaping decisions on the continent. And I think the Youth for Peace Africa program, which Gloria represented in the morning, came about as a decision of the PSC. Now, one of the discussions that we had prior was that gone are the days where advocacy was about making noise. As young people, we actually need to be strategic and identify how we can work with governments, bearing in mind that they have such an important role in terms of not just adopting national action plans, but also inclusivity in line with their national mandates. While I was a youth ambassador, I think, first of all, what I want to refer to was the adoption of the Bujumbura Declaration on Youth, Peace and Security. When young people gathered in Burundi to discuss youth, peace and security, we had the PSC endorsing that and actually adopting and taking it that annually young people need to gather and discuss peace and security issues. In December last year, we went back to Burundi, based on the provisions that were made by the Bujumbura Declaration, which the PSC adopted. And that is just one of the examples through which we can see that whenever there is commitment at PSC level, we see member states following it through. Because the African Union itself is an assembly of the different states that we have. And once a decision is taken at assembly level, then I think there are higher chances of it being mirrored or reflected at the national level. And I think an undertone to that is also, I guess, complexities of the youth, peace and security agenda. It must be owned by the people. And that's where we speak about localization. In the morning, we referred to the different frameworks that guide the youth, peace and security agenda, to the continental framework on youth, peace and security. And unless and until those frameworks are domesticized at the national level, it still becomes something that is foreign or imported from anywhere else, and that's where the role of the government comes in. Important also was actually the appointment of the Youth for Peace Africa champion within the African Union as an institution. So 5 years ago, you couldn't speak about a president who is the champion for the YPS agenda, but now we actually have the president of Burundi, His Excellency Evariste Ndayishimiye, who is appointed as a focal person for YPS amongst the presidents themselves. And that attests not only to the incremental changes we see within the African Union as an institution, but also some initiatives being taken by member states. We have Christine here and David from Kenya. Kenya is one of the countries that are also in the process of developing their own national plans with support of the Kenyan government. So I guess we see continuously the complementarities between what is happening at the institutional level as the African Union and being mirrored at national level. And in cases where the initiative does not come from the AU, it could actually come from the member states themselves. A president saying, I will take up this and run with it. We've also participated in several open sessions where we have spoken, myself highlighting the situation in Mozambique, the former IAP for North Africa region highlighting the issue of migration, which Dr. Ibrahim mentioned in his remarks. There's an exodus of young people from the African continent to look for jobs, for better employment, for better livelihoods in Europe. And the former youth ambassador for the North Africa region, Khulud Baguri, highlighted this, and this was adopted and endorsed by the PSC to say we need to look into this. So I think just based on those three examples, we can see that it is important to have young people in the room speaking to issues that are happening on the ground. And when they're given that opportunity to do so, there's intentionality. Admittedly, there are challenges such as funding, such as resources, but I think it's maybe by being a young person, I'm actually quite optimistic that the reality of the YPS agenda now compared to 5 or 10 years ago is very different. And the call and onus is on us as young people who have the opportunities to interact with the different state organizations to ensure that we represent others to the best of our abilities. Thank you very much.